All right, welcome, welcome. Let me stop sharing there. Okay, well, hello. Welcome to the last week of the current book in our series of the E3 Leadership and Coaching Book of the Month. So this is the last week of Secrets for Getting Things Done by Vincent Harris, and it's the book in the second E of the three E's, which is the second E is being efficient with things. So um, the three E's is really my umbrella term for the areas that I look at for leadership things and how to kind of like, well, what should I work on? What should I focus on? Because being a leader means so many things. That's just why there's thousands of books written on it from time immemorial about what is a good leader, what is not a good leader, and there are facets to it that you can drill deep, and there's always new kind of ways to kind of slice it given new circumstances, but there are also timeless principles that seem to carry through the ages. And so anyway, I just look at it from these three E's. And just one more time, if this happens to be the first time you've seen this or seen me, E3, the three E's are effective with people, efficient with things, and encouraging with myself. So anyway, so we're gonna discuss the last few chapters here of Vincent's book, and we'll kind of take it from there. So if you have comments, you can always reach me at kfurman at e3lc.net. You can go to my website there at www, of course, e3lc.net. And you can leave me a comment here. If you like it, please like it. And if you'd like to subscribe to the playlist, great. Awesome. I'll be doing this in a weekly setting to go through a book. So we get through a whole book in 1 month. And so each week we do however many chapters, roughly divided by four of how many there are, and we discuss them. So if you'd like to jump in, this is a lot more fun when it's actually people discussing it and sharing. But I'm more than happy to give you my thoughts if it's less confronting for you if you just listen to me go on about me. but but it's really I do like discussing these concepts with people and sharing ideas. It helps me clarify my thoughts, and hopefully my sharing will help clarify your thoughts. I don't know, we'll see. So give me some comments anyway. So we're going to do strategies. He's got 25 strategies that he says to take your productivity to the next level. We're going to do 21 through 25 tonight, and again, I'm just going to kind of synopsis of each chapter. Something seems relevant from my history or my situation, I'll share, and or give my thoughts. If there's something like related to it that I tend to talk about, I might do that too. So, all right. So, strategy number 21, he says, estimate the time and add 50%. Now, this is an interesting chapter in that when I first read it, I thought, why would you do that? Right? If you're trying to get things done and be efficient, why would you add more time to it? And it really his overall point in this chapter, which is it's just a valid point. I'm not trying to take away from Vincent because I think he does have a valid point, is that you don't necessarily want to. I don't think he makes this point exactly like this, but what I took away from and what was really helpful for me to think about it in this context was, okay, I have this deadline, right? Or I have this project I've been given. Here, I want you to handle X, right? I want handle this, and I need it done, as soon as possible. And so they're saying, okay, how long do you think it's going to take, right? So just to give them a rough frame, instead of saying the minimum, like I can get this done in about an hour. Okay, it's an hour, right? I can get it done in an hour. Well, there might be some unforeseen glitch. You might have a technology problem or something you didn't foresee in trying to get the project done, whatever, right? So but his point is like, well, partially his point is, well, add 50% to what you say, and then when things go awry, you'll still make the deadline, right? So that's kind of one of the underlying themes of what he's saying. um, so if you give yourself less stress, I think is really the upshot of it. So sorry, I was looking at a couple notes. So um, the other thing that he kind of gets to, and I think this is where he's really going for this, is, well, if you tell someone it's going to take an hour and a half and you get it done in about an hour, well, now you've over delivered, right? You've kind of under promised and over delivered, and that's not a bad way to run your business, right? So you don't necessarily want to overpromise and underdeliver. That can throw customers and out the door, so to speak, and you don't want to do that. So you kind of want to quote underpromise and overdeliver in a way. That's a cute way of saying, right? Do what you say you're going to do and do it ahead of time whenever possible and do it with a smile on your face, and that's going to create business, right? So I'm certainly trying to always do that. That's what I have in mind when I'm thinking about business, when I think about serving other people in a business relationship or a personal relationship. I'm always trying to think of coming at it with a smile on my face and doing what's best for them. That is my overriding kind of mindset. Um, and that's again, that's kind of being effective with people, but it's partially when you serve them, you need to be efficient with things to best serve them. So they go hand in hand in certain circumstances. Anyway, so it's a pretty quick point, and he makes it's a pretty good case for don't put yourself under a lot of stress. Add 50% of the time, and if you get it done under time, great. Now you got extra time as opposed to being stressed. Like it's a stressful situation to get the project done. Now you're getting it done. You're doing your best work, which again is another side point. Is if you're under stress, you're not going to be at 100% optimal level, right? So how can you set things up so mentally you are your best? And so part of it is give yourself that time. The only I'm going to put a caveat in this whole thing, and the only one is there's a law out there, right? That things take up the amount of time that are allotted to them. So there are times when this idea could backfire in that if you add time to a project, then it's going to eat up all that time. And there's some truth to that side too. So I think having the wisdom to know how to handle that, it comes from a lot of experience and knowing yourself extremely well and how much you're willing to focus and be committed to making it happen. So there's two sides to the coin here, and I'm just going to go with Vincent's in this discussion and just at least acknowledge the fact that it could backfire. So you have to keep that in mind also. So again, I don't want to take away from what he said because there's a lot of good points in what he said in that chapter, and there is that other side that I tend to think more of personally. I tend to think more of like, well, if I say it's going to take 2 hours, it'll take 2 hours. If I say it's going to take an hour and a half, maybe I can get my brain to be activated, right? That's kind of the efficient with things is like activate your brain, move faster. Um, which is a point that a lot of people would make, right? So just learn how to think faster and push your brain. Your brain is a supercomputer. Sorry, this is a big tangent, but your brain is a supercomputer and it can process things extremely fast when you get out of its way, so to speak. When you don't have when it's not gummed up with the doubt or the worry or if you're just focused on getting the job done, you're just getting the job done, and that can go faster than planned. All right, my dog is here. Hello. I don't know if Duke has made an appearance. There's Duke. Hi, Duke. Okay, there you go. That's one and only. Duke's a good doggy. All right. Anyway, on to next strategy, number 22. All right, let people know upfront how much time you have. Okay, and this is definitely kind of it's sort of the efficient with things, but it's actually effective with people more so, which is fine, right? There's a lot of carryover in that. So um, one of the things he's really trying to put out there is you want you want to respect other people's time, and you also want others to respect your time. And if you set up your meetings like somebody stops by your office, and I'll just do I think this is kind of what he got to in his chapter, but you're in your office, you're a manager, and your door's open, you have an open door policy. Great. In theory, great idea, right? You want to be available, you want to be seen as ready to serve, all that. So somebody stops by and say, hey, you have a minute? And you say, well, you look at your watch, like, yeah, I got a minute, go ahead. Well, just that, right? Yeah, go ahead is the kind of the green light, and then they launch into whatever they launch into. 15 minutes later, you're still dealing with it, and he said a minute, now it's 15. So they didn't mean to take up your time. You just didn't set it up, so they knew you had something going on, and so because of that lack of clarity in the setup of the situation, then it gets to be, now you got to kind of cajole it. And you have to sort of, like do all these maneuvers just to get it done. Whereas if you said, They said, hey, you got a minute? I said, well, I've got 5 minutes and that's it. I've got a call. So why don't we say, can you get it done in 5 minutes? All right, that's what. Can you tell me what you need to tell me, and we can get something productive done in 5 minutes? No, I think it's going to take longer. Great. Tell you what, want to, I'm going to be done with the phone call at 2:30. I've got 15 minutes. Then once you come back, right? Done. Right. And so therefore, they're not cut off in the middle of the conversation. It's clear about you've been clear about when you're available. Set it up. Give them the option, right? Or if it's I can get done in 5, right? And then they sit down. Then it becomes managing that 5 minutes, and that's another point he's making in the chapter is you said 5, it's 5, right? So you don't let it go 6, you go 5, and there's subtle ways to do that. He mentions those at the end of the chapter, but just saying, okay, I literally have 5 minutes. I'm not trying to be rude at all. I just, I respect your time, and I have time I've set aside for this call that's very important for them, and it's their time. So, okay, go. Right? And then it's going to be about 4 minutes. Like, okay, we need to wrap this up. Anything else that I need to know? Great. All right, send me that info. We'll talk later. Or beautiful, it's done. They get it all done. You're like, okay, you talk, get it, whatever, right? Either way, you can kind of before it ends, you wrap it up. You say, look, I really cannot go past, and I certainly don't want to be rude, and that was the deal. So I'm gonna have to take my call, but follow up with me. Let's talk further if that's the case, right? Or whatever, right? So you manage it and inside the time and move on. And there's no need to apologize for that. Again, if you come at it from you explain it, even if you say, look, I respect your time, I'm not going to waste your time, and I'm not interested in wasting my own time, so here's what we're going to do. That sets up a whole different dynamic about how people interact with you. And I don't mean it in the sense of they have to be scared of you. They just know that you're serious about your time, and you're serious about their time. You respect them so much that you want to make sure their time is worthwhile also. It also helps people gather their thoughts and be more succinct when possible, and then be honest about how much time things are going to take. If it doesn't work out the first time, second time, third time, they'll kind of get it. Like, no, he's not going to waver on this, right? So if you keep it very strict in the sense of just timekeeping, not in the way you handle people at all, right? But just like, no, this is the time, this is what we have, we're out, right? The other thing is just meetings. He doesn't talk about meetings, but just starting meetings on time and ending meetings on time. I've always tried to do that as much as I can, and if things go over, I'm deeply apologetic, and or I'll shave off time for the next time we meet if there is another one. Right? I'll say, look, we went over 5 minutes. We'll take 5 minutes off the next agenda. That's my fault, not your fault. I do not want to waste your time, so we'll take it off the next meeting and make it up there. Usually, everybody's pretty cool with that. If that's a consistent problem, that's you not scheduling correctly, right? And so that's a whole other issue. Doesn't want to get into that. I don't want to get into that tonight, but that's another thing to think about. Actually, I do want to say something about it. And that is, look, if you're the one in charge of a meeting, let's say you're having a meeting or you're meeting with somebody, and you say, I got, I got 30 minutes, and then we're done, and you it hangs over. Somebody has a question, you didn't, like stuff happens, right? That happens, but it's not like an hour over. It's just say 4 minutes over. You have a couple options. You can say almost at the 30-minute mark, you say, look, I think we're going to be going over. If you're not okay with it, everybody, we're going to have to table this, right? At this point, this is awkward, but I respect your time, so we can stop now, be on time, and we'll pick it up next time. Or we can just continue and say, I think it's going to be another 5 minutes. How about, is it okay if we finish this up and I'll shave off that time on our next meeting, right? So you're just really clear up front how it's going to work. Usually people are very, very accommodating. And so that's, again, it's just managing the time and not just letting things happen willy nilly and dealing with it and being stressed about how the meeting went over and now they're mad and, like all the drama about it. Like, just handle it. It gets rid of all that stuff. Okay, that's enough. That's enough on that. That's about all that needs to be said. Okay, strategy number 23. Don't live by assumptions, operate on facts. Okay. Whew, there's a lot to be said about this. All right, so assumptions, and he's not using a really. no, that's not true. He's using the kind of the general term of assumption, right? There's in my coaching practice, we have talked about, assumptions mean a certain kind of like the way people think about things, right? He's using it more of like, don't assume you know what's true until you really find out the facts, right? And he gives a big example apparently it's a big deal for him, and I don't want to belittle it at all. I'm not trying to make fun of it or belittle it or minimize it is the word I'm looking for. About if somebody has a knife and they're coming at you, right, and they're 21 feet away, you have a gun, are you safe? And so he used to do these these workshops, and they would kind of go through this, and people were like, well, yeah, they're so far away. They were shocked to find out that by the time you got your gun out, you'd already been stabbed, and it happened over and over, even with people that are trained, right? So he just says, look, it can have this appearance of being okay, and yet the reality is you're not okay. Things are closer than they appear. And he even talks about it in terms of a calendar, right? Things in the calendar are closer than they appear. So you look like you have time, you quote, feel like you have time. Reality is time's moving fast and you got a lot going on. Things happen, stuff blows up, then you have less time than you thought, etc. All that stuff that even I just talked about tonight. So anyway, so he's talking about, I guess it's 20, not 21, but whatever. So the 20-foot knife thing, there's that. So there's one other part to this I want to talk about. So he goes in a lot of detail about this knife gun situation and how to defend yourself, which obviously he's well invested in and did a lot of research on, which was great. Okay, then he talks about, so I'm going to kind of skip that because it's great. Read it. It's worth reading that part because it's very detailed. I don't need to do all the details. You get the gist of it. So again, things are closer than they appear. That's the main thing. Now he says, okay, well, if you want to operate on fact, there are some questions you should ask when you're hearing information from somebody, right? Somebody tells you something and you're trying to figure out, well, is this true or is this an opinion or where is this at? So it's per questions. And I think these are worth stating out loud here. So there are questions you can ask about any given belief or assumption to determine how valid it is and whether it is serving you in a useful way. So I gave the situation a little bit off in that it doesn't have to be somebody telling you something. You learn something, you read something, you hear something from sources, and you're trying to figure out, well, is this true? Is this valid or not? So he says, here's your questions. How do I know this is true? All right. So what's the proof? What is the proof behind what they're saying? Is it just somebody saying it, or is there data, or is there empirical studies, all those kinds of things? Like just how do I know? Second one is this assumption or belief one that I will want to pass on to my children? It's an interesting question, right? Do you want to believe something horrible about somebody and then tell your kids that they're horrible? Is that something you really want to do? Is show your kids how to gossip? Is that what you want to do? Right. So he doesn't say that exactly, but that's getting to the kind of the gist of this question is, do I want my kids to live with this assumption or this idea? All right, Duke, it's okay, buddy. Calm down there, champ. All right, and then the third one is, where did I learn this way of thinking? Who taught me this, and where did I pick it up? Okay, so if you're thinking about it in a certain way, instead of just saying, I agree with it or don't, or that's right or that's wrong, just for a moment, just like, okay, I kind of agree with this, but why would I think that? Where does that come from? Right? That's what's the power behind it, is, like what's behind your decision about whether it's true or not, and what's making you think it might be. Now, it doesn't mean you have to shake yourself to your core every time you're trying to figure something else, but um, you begin to realize that you learn things about how things are or the way you believe them to be through other people. We learned a lot of what we learned as children from our parents, usually, right? Or guardians or whoever, right? Somebody showed us the way, if you will, and we learned from their values, either by good or bad example. We learn values through that experience. That is how we're formed. That's why that, you know, all those formative years, what people call it, as a child, are extremely important. They shape how we are and what we see and how we feel about certain things the rest of our lives until we, you know, figure out a way to complete those and move on and create new ones, which is very, very difficult. They're usually always there to varying degrees. But they can change. Like you can change, obviously, and you can work out some of the things that aren't working for you and change those in a way that does. They're still there. That's the thing. You can't necessarily erase them all, but you can choose not to use the ones that don't serve you, right? And again, that's getting into kind of the coaching realm of things. So I'm not going to go further into that, but if you have questions, that's a good point to kind of ponder for a moment. And if you have questions about that, reach out, ask me what I mean by that, and give me, and I'd be glad to have a conversation and explain that a little bit further. Okay, and he says, well, that if you start delving into that question, you know, who taught me this or where did I pick it up? That kind of leads to another one. So if somebody else is saying something, right, and you say, how does that person know this is true? Where did they get their information? What do they think of it, right? So where is it coming from their side? And if you can answer these four questions and really get clarity on, you know, those four things, he says you have a much better chance of seeing the world from a fact standpoint than an assumption or just a belief about something or opinion. All right. Read the chapter for more detail. I don't think that's quite enough to give you all the context, but that's what's in the chapter. So check it out. All right. And we're going to move on. Strategy number 24, the mouse exercise. All right. So the mouse exercise is a way to exemplify how our brains actually process information, whether it's physically there or our imagination. So when we create a scenario in our brain and start to delve into what are they going to say, what am I going to say, that kind of conversation, or visualizing how people are going to react to something you do or say. When you start visualizing, it's actually almost as real as it really happening to parts of your brain. And especially in the subconscious part or the unconscious part, if you will. So we'll say subconscious for now. So what he does in a nutshell is he has you imagine a mouse. Say, okay, look, about 8 feet away from you, there's a little mouse on the floor, just there, right, just looking at you. And then he asks some questions, okay, and again, just really. And he says, look, try to get as much detail about the mouse as you can. It's not just a silhouette, right? And it's a mouse, right? It's there. It's got tails, So then he says, okay, great. How long was the mouse's tail? How big were his ears compared to a hamster's ears, right? Was this fur darker towards the front of his body or the back? And were the pink pads of his feet visible? Right, so those kinds of things, just asking you very detailed questions, and in your brain, you actually went. And his point is, you go back to the picture of what you imagined, and either filled in detail, or rethought the detail you did before, and then conjured up the answers to that question. So the thing is, his point is, look, you gave me all those answers. You thought of the answers, if you will. Even right now, you might have done it, and you thought, yeah, it was dark on the front end, or whatever, right? The thing is, the mouse isn't there. It's in your head. You imagine the whole thing. That's how strong our imagination is. Super strong, super powerful. And when we use it in a positive way, right, it can be a huge, huge benefit to seeing a vision for your future, seeing what you really want out of life, which is not his point here, but it is really the ultimate point to it, is you actually have this powerful, powerful visionary tool on your brain. And the mouse exercise is a really good one to check. Now, he says here's some things to really think about in the sense of like, how can I use this to my advantage, not just imagining a mouse, right? So here you throw out some questions. How many of the things you've been worrying about most recently have actually existed for you? Or is it just things you've imagined might happen? Okay, it's a good one. I'm not going to read all the questions. You got to read the book. How much have you hurt your productivity and your ability to take action by the images you've created in the theater of your own mind and imagination? and by treating them as real, right? And I brought that one up because he talks about the theater of your mind. He does in this chapter about it's like a theater, right? You're imagining it. It's a not a play, but a recreation of something, right? And so your mind is that powerful that it can create a whole scenario without you having to have it actually be there. And so that can be dangerous if you use it for worry and doubt and creating mountains out of molehills, right? And that kind of falls into that category, or whatever, right? Imagining the worst case scenario of something that's going to go wrong. There's a place for that, by the way. But if you do it on a consistent basis and it stops you from acting, then there's a reason to kind of rethink that. So there's that. Okay. So yeah, and I'll let you check out the end of that chapter. Is a cute little um, reference. We'll put it that way, right? Read the book. Okay, last strategy, number 25. Why affirmations rarely work and can even make matters worse, and what you can do about it. Okay, so when I first read this, I went, oh my, because I have heard a lot more people talk about affirmations, how they're positive, how they work, how they retrain your thinking. And I can say I actually believe both of them because it depends. And there's a reason in the book. He gives a really good reason why sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. He talks mostly like they don't. And he sort of takes the kind of glass half empty kind of deal with it. But I have seen for myself. I've done affirmations at times more consistently than others. Let's be honest. I've been consistent at times, not so consistent at times. When I have consistently done it, and a few scattering of the others, but when I'm consistent, I can see a shift. I can see a shift on some of the things that I'm affirming. And an affirmation isn't saying what was true. It's sort of a declaration of what will be true. And that's a mindset shift. And that's one of the things he doesn't necessarily address, but he does, but not the way I'm talking about it. He does it a little bit different way, which I think is brilliant, by the way, because you can turn those ones that don't tend to work into ones that work with his suggestion, which is why it's brilliant. But there are some times when you don't need his suggestion per se, and affirmations can work. Okay, so I don't agree with they rarely can work. I think they sometimes work. I don't know about rarely, but I totally buy to him to what he's saying in his chapter because he talks about this. So in his version of this, he's talking about people usually make affirmations to kind of correct something wrong they don't like about themselves, or they're trying to work on it and it's a problem area or something. And so they don't really believe what they're saying in the affirmation, something positive, future based, or now based. It sounds like you're lying, right? You're saying it like, oh, I'm a great salesman when you had, you know, the worst record of the whole company, right? So very difficult to just all of a sudden be the best ever with that kind of track record. It can be done with enough practice. I mean, repetition, not even just practice, but just repetition of hearing that over and over and over. If you do it enough times a day, it does shift. What his point is, that shift, I'm going to blend the two for a second here. That shift can happen much faster if you add 2 words to your affirmation. So a lot of people talk about I'm the best salesman in the company. Where behind it, what's going on is this fight of, no, you're not. Are you kidding? No, you're not. Right? That it's just this the way most human beings on the planet, if not almost everyone, there's some area of your life where that happens, where you say this and immediately it's no, that's not true. Right. And so he says that's why affirmations don't work, is you have this constant battle going on. You're not really addressing that behind the scenes cynicism, right? I'll put it that category. He says, look, here's the fix. Here's how you do it. Right? You add 2 words to that cynicism part and you connect it to the affirmation rather than it being totally separate and trying to negate the quote negative parts, right? And just saying the positive only and just try to ignore it. He says, no. Incorporate it. And this is where I completely agree with him. I think it's brilliant. I think this is my favorite strategy out of the whole book. The two words are even if or even when, right? Um, even though I think is yeah, that's the two words he used. Even though it's not even if, it's even though is ones he used, but I think you could use even if or even when. But even though you say okay, even though I have the worst sales track record, I can be the best salesman in the company. Now you've acknowledged where you are without wallowing in it, without all the drama. And it's then, well, even though that's true, I can do this. You're telling yourself and that voice that tells you, no, you can't. Well, even though that you say that's true, I can still change. I can do this. That's super powerful. I don't know if I can convey how much just saying that now actually adds a lot of energy to stuff that I've wrestled with for a long time. Um, it doesn't matter. You don't care because we all have our things, right? So some people struggle with health issues. Some people struggle with money issues. Some people struggle with relationships. Some people struggle with um, whatever, right? Pick an area of your life. Somebody's struggling with that area if it's not you, all right? And some people struggle with many areas. They just seem to have, be kind of dealing with a lot of stuff. This, even though I don't have enough money to pay my mortgage, I know I can make more than enough money to become wealthy. That's a great affirmation, right? Now, generally, people, when they talk about affirmations, it's state the positive, you know, future based, or like I am wealthy now. I am wealthy. Just I am wealthy, right? And this, which is great. I agree with that because you want your brain to be focused on what you want. I am wealthy. You're focused on being wealthy. What what Vincent did, I think, is what's brilliant about that. Is he's acknowledging what's so, and then saying, even though this may be true right now, I can do this. I can become wealthy. I am becoming wealthy. You can change. You don't have to be I am wealthy. You can say, well, even though I don't have enough money to pay my mortgage, I can become wealthy. Now you're not ignoring anything. You're addressing the issue without wallowing in the drama or the emotion. And it may be a very painful thing. I mean, not being able to pay your mortgage, it's a big deal. And that's been going on lately, given where we are in a pandemic that hit us earlier this year. So I think there's a lot of value in that. So let me know what you think about that one. Again, I think that's my favorite one of the whole book. It's the most powerful one for me personally, and I think given what I've when working with people with coaching and just leadership training, that's a powerful strategy. So I will be implementing that for sure, and actually I already have, and so but I will in the future for sure. So let me know what you think about those and or any other things in this series, and we're gonna do another book, and it's gonna be announced later because I don't have it here. I thought I had it right here. I apologize. So actually, we're going to do for the next couple months. We're going to moving into encouraging with myself. Oh no, I do have it. Here we go. I thought I didn't. It didn't look like it was here. We're going to be doing this book. It's older, but it's the Self-Esteem Repair and Maintenance Manual. It's short again. I picked another short book, right? We're heading into holiday season when I'm recording this, so I don't want to do anything really hefty and lots of reading. So looking for short reads, but this is going to be the part of the encouraging with myself version. So Self-Esteem Repair and Maintenance Manual by David Brooks and Rex Dolby. So check that out, right? For next time, we're going to be doing. Let me check it out again. There are 10 chapters and an epilogue, so we'll probably do a couple of chapters a week. A couple of them we'll do 3. So let's just say 1 or 2 probably 2 chapters for next time, and then we'll portion it out later. So check that out for the following week. This is actually the last one of this month, like as it's supposed to be. So it's gonna be right at the beginning of the next month to do that one. There might even be 5 weeks in that month, so we might just do two chapters a week. How about that? So anyway, Thanks a lot for checking it out. Again, kfurman@e3lc.net. Give me a comment here if you'd like, and we'll see you next time. Feel free to join me on these, and we can have a lively discussion. Take care. See ya.